Deep within the emerald embrace of the Mayan jungle, where ancient wisdom whispered through the leaves, stood the magnificent pyramids of El Pilar. These majestic structures, once symbols of power and knowledge, now lay shrouded in mystery and enigma. For centuries, they had defied the relentless march of time, standing tall and proud amidst the sprawling vines and the haunting ruins. But now their secrets were about to be unveiled. The year was 1965, when the world stood on the brink of a new era. The space race had captured the imagination of mankind, and in this exhilarating competition between nations, every discovery, every breakthrough brought humanity one step closer to unraveling the mysteries of the cosmos. Amidst this fervor for exploration and discovery, two intrepid explorers, two brothers named Ark and Ian Milburn, embarked on a journey of their own. They set out to explore the uncharted territories of the Mayan world, a place where ancient secrets lay dormant, waiting to be unearthed. For weeks, they had ventured deep into the heart of the Yucatan Peninsula, braving dense foliage and deciphering cryptic clues left behind by the Mayans. Their determination was unwavering as they sought to uncover the hidden truths that lay buried beneath the sands of time. Finally, their quest led them to a clearing where two majestic pyramids stood bathed in the golden light of dawn. These were no ordinary structures. They were the enigmatic pyramids of El Pilar. The pyramids of El Pilar were not merely ancient burial grounds or centers of religious rituals. They were architectural marvels, each step a testament to the ingenuity and skill of the Mayan people. Standing over 200 feet tall, these pyramids dominated the landscape. Their construction was a feat of engineering brilliance, with thousands of limestone blocks precisely fitted together without the use of mortar. As the explorers approached the pyramids, they were struck by the imposing presence that radiated from these ancient structures. Each weathered block seemed to whisper tales of a bygone era, inviting them to decipher the secrets they held. As the day wore on, the explorers delved deeper into the mysteries of the pyramids. They uncovered intricate carvings on the walls depicting scenes from Mayan mythology and daily life. Hieroglyphs adorned the surfaces, each symbol a piece of a forgotten language. In the heart of the larger pyramid, they found a staircase leading to a mysterious chamber. With bated breath, they descended into darkness, their flashlights revealing a vast cavern. Within this subterranean labyrinth, they discovered an array of artifacts, including clay vessels, ornaments made of jade, a material highly prized by the Mayans, and intricately designed stone tools. These relics were not just objects. They were tangible links to the past, offering a glimpse into the daily lives of the ancient Mayan inhabitants. But the most astonishing find was yet to come. At the end of the cavern, hidden beneath layers of earth and time, they discovered a sarcophagus. Its surface was decorated with vibrant colors and intricate patterns depicting mythical creatures and celestial bodies. With reverence, the explorers carefully cleared the debris, revealing the entrance to the tomb. What secrets lay within? What stories would greet them in the chamber beyond? As the news of their discoveries spread, the world marveled at the treasures unearthed at El Pilar. Archaeologists and historians were eager to unravel the secrets held within the pyramids and the newly discovered tomb. Among them was Dr. Isabella Cortez, a brilliant archaeologist with an unwavering passion for the Mayan civilization. Her knowledge of ancient languages and history was unparalleled, and she was determined to shed light on the mysteries of El Pilar. Dr. Cortez assembled a team of experts to assist in the ongoing excavations. Among the new arrivals was a young, enthusiastic archaeologist named Hector Cruz. He had been captivated by the Mayan world since childhood and now had the opportunity to contribute to its study. Alongside them came Professor William Albright, an anthropologist with a keen eye for detail. His expertise in ancient cultures was invaluable as they sought to understand the significance of the artifacts found within the pyramids. Together, this team of intrepid explorers and scholars delved deeper into the secrets of El Pilar. Dr. Cortez, with her extensive knowledge of Mayan hieroglyphs, began the arduous task of deciphering the inscriptions found on the temple walls and artifacts. Each symbol, each glyph was a piece of a complex puzzle, and she worked tirelessly to assemble the fragments of the Mayan past. Meanwhile, Hector Cruz focused on the architectural intricacies of the pyramids themselves. He examined the construction techniques, the alignment with celestial bodies, and the overall design to gain insight into the Mayan way of life. Professor Albright, with his sharp eye for detail, scrutinized every artifact, noting any patterns or connections that could shed light on the cultural practices and beliefs of the ancient inhabitants. As days turned into weeks, the team made significant progress in their investigations. They uncovered more tombs, each offering a unique glimpse into the burial rituals and social hierarchy of the Mayan society. The artifacts continued to amaze, with each object weaving another thread into the tapestry of Mayan history. Among the most intriguing finds were Maya codices, ancient books made of bark paper which provided valuable insights into their mythology, astronomy, and daily life. These fragile documents, carefully preserved for centuries, offered a window into a world long gone. Yet, despite the excitement of these discoveries, a sense of urgency loomed over the team. They were racing against time, aware that the elements and looters posed constant threats to the fragile remains of the past. The scorching sun beat down on El Pilar, and the relentless jungle vines seemed to close in on the ruins, eager to reclaim what was once theirs. The team worked tirelessly, driven by the need to preserve these treasures before they were lost forever. As they explored deeper into the labyrinthine tunnels beneath the pyramids, they realized that they were not just archaeologists and explorers, they were the custodians of history, entrusted with the responsibility of preserving the legacy of a lost civilization. Each brush stroke, each careful excavation was a testament to their dedication, ensuring that the story of El Pilar would live on. With the expedition's success, a wave of excitement swept through the scientific community. The discoveries at El Pilar promised to rewrite history, offering a new perspective on the Mayan civilization. Academic journals eagerly awaited the findings, and museums prepared to display the treasures of El Pilar to an awestruck public. The world was on the brink of a paradigm shift in understanding the ancient Maya. However, amidst the accolades and recognition, a shadow of controversy loomed on the horizon. Critics questioned the methods used in the excavations, the authenticity of the artifacts, and the very essence of exploring and excavating ancient sites. The explorers and researchers found themselves at the center of a debate that went beyond the realm of dusty books and forgotten ruins. They had to stand firm, defending their work and the importance of unraveling the mysteries of the past. In the face of skepticism, the team at El Pilar remained resolute. Dr. Cortez, with her unwavering passion, passionately defended the significance of their findings. She emphasized the painstaking research, the countless hours spent deciphering ancient texts, and the collaborative efforts of the entire team. Hector Cruz, the young archaeologist, spoke of the thrill of discovery, the sense of wonder that had driven him to this moment. He highlighted how each artifact was a piece of a grander narrative, contributing to the mosaic of Mayan history. Professor Albright, the anthropologist, focused on the cultural insights gained from the excavations. He spoke of the burial rituals, the social hierarchy, and the belief systems that were revealed through their work, emphasizing the need to understand the human element behind the artifacts. As the debate raged on, the team at El Pilar continued their work, letting their discoveries speak for themselves. They knew that the true value of their findings lay not in the controversies, but in the knowledge they were unearthing about a lost civilization. Their dedication was a tribute to the spirit of exploration and discovery that had led them to this extraordinary place. Years have passed since the historic excavations at El Pilar. The pyramids, once shrouded in mystery, now stand proudly restored, showcasing the grandeur of the ancient Mayan civilization. The world has marveled at the treasures unearthed, and the team led by Dr. Cortez has been celebrated for their groundbreaking work. But perhaps the greatest legacy of El Pilar lies not in the artifacts or the fame, but in the spirit of adventure, discovery, and the relentless pursuit of knowledge. The story of El Pilar serves as a reminder that there is always more to uncover, more stories waiting to be told, and that the thirst for exploration and understanding is what truly sets us apart. Venice was a city that dared to dream of greatness while everyone around them was busy drowning. In the year 642 AD, Venice was born out of nothing but courage and trade. It was an improbable beginning for what would soon become one of the largest cities in Europe. This is the story of how they did it. The early history of Venice is lost in the mists of time. The lagoon where the city would rise had been inhabited by people since prehistoric times. But we can trace the roots of Venice back to 420 when Germanic tribes known as the Goths invaded Italy. They raided the coastal town of Malamocco, forcing its residents to flee across the lagoon to the islands of Torcello and Pono. Here they were joined by refugees from other Gothic raids, people who simply wanted to escape the violence of the mainland. And, slowly but surely, they began to rebuild their lives on these small strips of land surrounded by water. Now, the exact origins of the Venetian people are unknown. We think they were a mix of refugees fleeing the Gothic invasions, local lagoon dwellers, and even a few Goths themselves who decided peace was preferable to plunder. Whatever their origins, the Venetians quickly adapted to their watery surroundings, building boats and learning to fish. They also developed a unique form of government, a council of elected officials who would make decisions by majority vote. It was a radical idea at the time, basically democracy, but that's a story for another day. For now, let's just say that in many ways, Venice was ahead of its time. In the year 642, the Venetian people reached out to the bishop of neighboring Aquileia and asked him to send missionaries to convert them to Christianity. Soon after, the first church was built, and Venice officially became a Christian city. Around this time, the Byzantine Empire started to feel threatened by the growing power of the neighboring Lombards. So, in 662, they appealed to Venice for help. The Venetians were happy to oblige. In return, the Byzantines granted them permission to collect the salt tax on their behalf, which meant the Venetians could keep everything they collected beyond what was needed to pay the tax. This was a huge boost to the economy of the lagoon and allowed the Venetians to flourish. They built more boats and expanded their trade network throughout the Mediterranean. They even started raiding Lombard ships passing through the lagoon. Just for protection. Of course, they were careful not to provoke the Byzantines, though, because they were still technically under their protection. By the 8th century, Venice was a major trading hub and shipbuilding center. They were so good at making boats, in fact, that the neighboring Patriarchate of Aquileia hired them to build a fleet of warships. But this brought them into conflict with the Muslims who controlled much of the Mediterranean shipping lanes. At first, the Venetians tried to stay out of it, but when Muslim pirates attacked a Venetian merchant ship, they declared war. This may have been the first military engagement in Venetian history, or it may have been the last. Because by the 9th century, the Venetian Republic was established and the lagoon was united under one flag. As the centuries passed, Venice grew steadily in power and wealth. They defeated the Byzantines in battle, expelled the Franks from the lagoon, and negotiated a treaty with the Germans that secured their independence. They even survived an invasion by Napoleon. So what made Venice so resilient? What made this improbable city on the water endure for so long? The answer, I believe, lies in the very nature of Venice itself. From its humble beginnings as a refuge for people fleeing violence, Venice grew into a powerhouse of trade and exploration. Its location on the water gave Venice unparalleled access to the rest of the world, and its citizens were quick to take advantage of this. With their ships, they traveled to distant lands, bringing back exotic goods that were in high demand in Europe. This trade made them very wealthy and powerful, and they used this power to protect themselves from outside threats. Venice was truly a city like no other, and this was both its greatest strength and its greatest weakness. You see, Venice was built on water, and this made it vulnerable to flooding, but it also made it uniquely beautiful. The canals of Venice are what make it so picturesque today, but they were also a necessity. The Venetians had to build their houses on stilts over the water, and they used the canals to transport goods and people. Even today, there are no roads in Venice. Everything is accessible by boat or on foot. Another thing that set Venice apart was its government. Unlike most Italian city-states, Venice was ruled by a grand council of nobles rather than a king or emperor. This made Venice more stable and less prone to corruption, but it also made it more difficult to raise an army. Defending the Republic often required the help of mercenaries. But perhaps the most important thing that set Venice apart was its spirit. The Venetians were a brave and adventurous people. They were willing to take risks and explore new things. This is what allowed them to build such a powerful navy and explore so much of the Mediterranean. The Venetians were also very proud of their independence. They were fiercely protective of their lagoon and would defend it with their lives. There is perhaps no better example of this than the Battle of the Lagoon in 978. That year, a fleet of 2,000 Byzantine ships attacked Venice, but they were met by a Venetian fleet half that size. The Venetian ships were smaller and slower, but they were more maneuverable, and the Venetians knew the waters of their lagoon like the back of their hands. After 3 days of fighting, the Byzantines were defeated and forced to retreat. This victory secured Venetian independence and showed the rest of Europe that the little city on the water should not be underestimated. Over the next few centuries, Venice grew into one of the most powerful and prosperous republics in Europe. Their navy dominated the Mediterranean, and their merchants were some of the richest in the world. But all good things must come to an end. And in the 15th century, Venice began to decline. Their economy weakened, their navy became less powerful, and their rivals began to encroach on their territory. But despite all of this, Venice never gave up. They fought back against their enemies and managed to preserve their independence until Napoleon conquered Italy in 1797. When Napoleon came to power, he ended the Venetian Republic and incorporated Venice into his empire. This was the end of over 1,000 years of independence for the Venetian people, but it was not the end of Venice itself. Today, Venice is a part of Italy, and it is one of the most popular tourist destinations in the world. Every year, millions of people visit Venice to admire its canals, its architecture, and its rich history. So, what can we learn from the story of Venice? How can we apply it to our own lives today? I believe that Venice teaches us the importance of courage, curiosity, and independence. The Venetians were not afraid to strike out on their own. They were willing to risk everything to create a better life for themselves. They explored the world and brought back new ideas and goods to their lagoon. And they fiercely protected their independence from outside threats. These are all qualities that we should strive for in our own lives. We should be courageous enough to take risks and pursue our dreams. We should be curious about the world and open to new experiences. And we should be independent thinkers who are not afraid to stand up for what we believe in. Today, Venice is a shadow of its former self. Its population has declined, its economy is weak, and its rivals have taken much of its territory. But despite all of this, Venice endures. It is a testament to the courage, creativity, and independence of the Venetian people. Thank you for watching. If you like the video, please subscribe and leave a comment below with your suggestions for topics that I should cover in the future. Until then, goodbye. In a world where kings once ruled with iron fists and unyielding spirits, what happens when the very earth they stand upon turns against them? Join us as we delve into a realm where tectonic shifts, natural disasters, and elemental fury challenge the mightiest of monarchs and reshape the destiny of entire civilizations. Welcome to our channel, where the mighty fall and the earth roars its defiance. Number 7. The Sunken Kingdom of Thera. Legend tells of a powerful kingdom known as Thera, situated on the sun-kissed shores of the Aegean Sea. The king at its helm was renowned for his wisdom and strength, leading his people to prosperity and peace. But the sea had its own plans. As the monarch basked in the glow of his success, the Mediterranean rumbled beneath him, a silent threat waiting to unleash its wrath. Without warning, the earth shook. Walls crumbled and the ocean surged forward, swallowing the city whole. Palace turned to rubble, the king's crown lost to the depths. Now only the faintest whisper of Theron remains, a haunting echo of what once stood proud on the hills of Santorini, a reminder that even the brightest kingdoms can be extinguished in an instant by the fury of the deep. Number 6. The Deluge and the Last Pharaoh. In the annals of ancient Egypt, the tale of the last pharaoh is etched with both grandeur and tragedy. Akhenaten, the heretic king who dared to defy the gods and change the course of Egyptian religion, left behind a legacy that both intrigued and unsettled his successors. When his son Shmenkar took the throne, the young ruler seemed destined to continue his father's unconventional ways. However, fate had other plans. A cataclysmic flood, perhaps the likes of which Egypt had never seen before, tore across the land. It washed away not just cities and farmlands, but also the very foundations of Akhenaten's religious revolution. The Nile, usually life-giving and predictable, had turned into a raging torrent, reshaping the landscape and washing away any trace of the Aten religion. Tuya, who had initially shown favoritism towards the new faith, now found herself swept up in the current of tradition. With the deluge came the resurgence of old gods and the return of traditional practices. Smenkhare, unable to withstand the pressure, abandoned the worship of the Aten, choosing instead to align himself with the gods of his ancestors. The Great Flood thus became a pivotal moment in Egyptian history, marking the end of an era and the return to the old ways. It was a testament to the capricious nature of fate and the enduring power of tradition in the face of even the most determined reform. The deluge not only reshaped Egypt's physical landscape, but also served as a reminder of the limitations of even the most ambitious of rulers. Number 5. The Earthquake and the Forgotten Dynasty. The year is 1173 AD, and the mighty city of Aleppo in Syria trembles under the force of an earthquake so powerful it shakes the foundations of not just one reign, but an entire dynasty. At the epicenter of this seismic upheaval stands King Nur al-Din Mahmud, the Zengid ruler of Aleppo. As the earth splits and buildings collapse, the king's ambitions, which once reached from Damascus to the gates of Jerusalem, crumble along with his domain. The Zengids, a dynasty of Turkish origin, had risen to prominence in the 12th century, carving out a realm amidst the chaos of the declining Abbasid Caliphate. Now their great leader lies beneath the wreckage of his palace, a victim of the earth's unforgiving embrace. Yet the true tragedy extends beyond the grave of a single king. This catastrophic earthquake, one of the deadliest in recorded history, effectively erases the Zengid dynasty from the map. Their demise not only marks a significant shift in the political landscape of the region, but also leaves behind a legacy buried in the dust and debris of a forgotten kingdom. Number 4. The Fury of the Volcano. In the shadow of a brooding volcano lived a king. His name was Atreus, and his heart was heavy with the fear of the slumbering giant that watched over his kingdom. But fear turned to hubris when the mountain remained quiet for many years, leading the king to believe he had conquered nature's fury. To prove his dominance, he decided to build his palace at the very foot of the volcano, a monument to his supposed bravery. Yet the mountain had its own plans. One fateful day, the earth trembled, and the mighty volcano roared back to life. It spewed molten lava and ash, engulfing the palace and turning the king's dream of conquest into a nightmare of destruction. As the fiery torrent descended upon the kingdom, Atreus realized the futility of his defiance. The volcano, indifferent to human pride or ambition, had reclaimed what was once its own. All that remained was a field of cooled lava, and the ashes of a king who had dared to challenge the wrath of the earth. Number 3. The Lost City of Dwaraka. In the heart of the Arabian Sea lies the submerged ruins of Dwaraka, an ancient Indian city that was once home to the legendary Lord Krishna. According to Hindu mythology, Dwaraka was a magnificent metropolis of gold and jeweled palaces, ruled over by Krishna and his descendants for several thousand years. But as the centuries passed, the earth beneath it shifted. Earthquakes struck, the sea rose, and eventually the entire city was swallowed by the waves. Today, only crumbling pillars and fragments of temples peek above the surface, bearing silent testimony to the city's former glory. The mystery deepens when scientists confirm the existence of a sunken civilization in the Gulf of Cambay, approximately 9,000 years old, roughly corresponding to the mythical timeline of Dwaraka's existence. Could these submerged structures hold the key to unraveling one of the world's oldest and most revered myths? Or are they merely the remnants of a civilization lost to time? The answer, like the city itself, lies beneath the waves. Number 2. The Shattered Empire of Angkor. In the heart of Cambodia, the sprawling ruins of Angkor Thom tell the tale of a once mighty empire brought low by both nature and man. Jayavarman VII, the enigmatic king who transformed the Khmer kingdom into the vast and opulent empire of Angkor, cast a long shadow over Southeast Asian history. His successors continued to expand the empire's reach until its decline in the 15th century, a downturn attributed to both environmental shifts and external pressures. Yet it was the relentless march of the jungle that dealt the final blow. As the centuries passed, the great city was consumed by the encroaching wilderness, leaving behind a haunting tableau of moss-covered towers and tangled roots. Today, visitors wander among the overgrown ruins, marveling at the ingenuity of a bygone era while contemplating the humbling power of nature's reclamation. The shattered empire serves as a solemn reminder of the impermanence of human endeavor in the face of the earth as untamed beauty. Number 1. The Eruption and the Forgotten Queen. The year is 1815, and the world is still reeling from the devastating eruption of Mount Tambora, an event so cataclysmic it plunged much of the northern hemisphere into darkness. But amidst the global upheaval caused by the volcanic winter that followed, a small kingdom in the Caribbean finds itself on the brink of oblivion. Queen Mary, the last of her bloodline, watches helplessly as her island nation succumbs to the fury of the mountain. Her pleas for help go unanswered as the rest of the world grapples with its own struggles brought on by Tambora's wrath. Unable to flee, and with no one to save her, the queen faces the grim reality of her fate alone. And as the fertile lands of her homeland turn to barren wastelands and the seas that once teemed with life become desolate, she realizes that her story, like that of her kingdom, is destined to be forgotten in the annals of history. From the sunken cities to the fury of volcanoes, each of these stories serves as a stark reminder of the power of the earth. Whether it's the relentless sea, a capricious climate, or the wrath of a volcano, the earth has proven time and again that it is a force to be reckoned with. Each king and queen who has fallen victim to its whims has left behind a legacy etched not just in stone or myth, but in the very fabric of the earth itself. As we reflect on their tales, we are reminded of the audacity of human ambition and the humbling realization that even the greatest of reigns can be brought low by the fury of the earth. Thank you for joining us on this journey through time and across continents to explore the stories of kings and queens whose reigns were cut short by the earth's unyielding power. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to show your support and be sure to stay tuned for more captivating tales. Until next time, remember that the Earth's fury knows no bounds, and the stories of those who have dared to challenge it live on in the chronicles of our planet's untamed spirit. After more than 3 centuries of civil war, genocide, and slavery, the last independent Maya kingdom fell in 1697. Yet somehow their spirit survived. The Maya people endured hunger, war, and unrest for generations. yet their spirit refused to vanish. In this video, we will explore how they managed to preserve their culture and identity through centuries of struggle. The Maya civilization was one of the most advanced in the ancient world. They developed a sophisticated system of writing, built impressive cities, and made significant contributions to mathematics and astronomy. However, by the 16th century, the Spanish had conquered most of the Maya territory, and the indigenous people were subjected to forced labor, slavery, and cultural suppression. Despite these hardships, the Maya managed to preserve their culture and identity. So, how did they do it? One way the Maya people maintained their cultural identity was through their art. Despite the Spanish attempts to eradicate indigenous religions and beliefs, the Maya continued to practice their traditional religions in secret. They expressed their beliefs through various art forms, including weaving, pottery, and painting. For example, the Spanish missionaries tried to convert the Maya to Christianity and ban their pagan rituals. But the Maya wove secret messages into their textiles that expressed their traditional beliefs and values. They also hid their religious symbols in their pottery and paintings, which allowed them to keep their cultural identity alive. Another way the Maya maintained their cultural identity was through language. Despite the Spanish attempts to impose their language on the indigenous population, the Maya continued to speak their native languages. The Spanish missionaries established schools to teach Christianity and Spanish to the Maya children. However, the Maya elders passed down their native languages orally, which helped to preserve them. Today, there are 30 living Maya languages spoken in Mexico, Guatemala, El Salvador, and Honduras. These languages are a testament to the Maya's ability to maintain their cultural identity despite centuries of oppression. The Maya also maintained their cultural identity through their music and dance. Music and dance are an integral part of Maya culture, and they have been used to express religious beliefs, historical events, and social customs for generations. Despite the Spanish attempts to suppress indigenous music and dance, the Maya continued to perform their traditional dances in secret. They also adapted some of their traditional dances to fit within the boundaries of Spanish culture. For example, the dance of the deer was originally a religious ceremony, but it was later adapted to become a secular dance performed at festivals and celebrations. Another way the Maya maintained their cultural identity was through their food. Food is an important part of any culture, and the Maya are no exception. Despite the Spanish attempts to change the Maya diet and force them to eat European foods, they continued to eat their traditional foods. The Maya grew crops such as maize, beans, and squash, and they continued to prepare these crops in traditional ways. For example, they developed a method of cooking called the nixtamalization process, which involves cooking corn in an alkaline solution to make tortillas. This process is still used today and is an important part of the Maya culinary tradition. Finally, the Maya maintained their cultural identity through their religion. Despite the Spanish attempts to convert the Maya to Christianity, they continued to practice their traditional religions. The Maya religion is a complex system of beliefs and practices that were developed over many centuries. It is based on a deep connection to the natural world, and the Maya believed that everything in the universe was interconnected. They also believed that there was a constant cycle of death and rebirth, and that the dead could interact with the living. Although the Maya had to practice their religion in secret, they were able to keep their cultural identity alive through their beliefs and rituals. It's important to note that the Maya weren't passive in their resistance against the Spanish. They fought back in various ways, including armed rebellions, escapes, and acts of sabotage. For example, the Maya leader known as Chat Kim fought against the Spanish for years, although he was eventually captured and executed. Other Maya leaders, such as Tekun Uman, organized groups of rebels who launched attacks against the Spanish settlements. In addition to armed resistance, the Maya also used less violent methods to resist the Spanish. For example, they created underground networks to help slaves escape captivity. They also formed alliances with other indigenous groups to fight back against the Spanish. Although the Maya were ultimately defeated militarily, Their spirit of resistance lived on. Their ability to maintain their culture and identity in the face of oppression is truly remarkable. But what does this tell us about the Maya people today? What can we learn from their resilience and adaptability? The Maya people's ability to survive centuries of oppression is a testament to their strength and resilience. They were able to maintain their culture and identity in the face of incredible adversity, and they continue to thrive today. We can learn from their example by embracing diversity, celebrating cultural differences, and standing up for what we believe in. By doing so, we can honor the legacy of the Maya people and ensure that their story is never forgotten. Let us take a closer look at how the Maya people have been able to thrive despite centuries of oppression. One of the reasons for their success is their ability to adapt. The Maya have been able to adapt to changing circumstances while still maintaining their cultural identity. For example, they were able to incorporate new crops and technologies into their traditional agricultural practices without abandoning their traditional values. They also adapted their religious practices to fit within the boundaries of Spanish culture, allowing them to continue practicing their religion in secret. Another reason for the Maya's success is their strong sense of community. The Maya people have a long history of living in close-knit communities and supporting each other through difficult times. This sense of community has been essential to their survival, as it has allowed them to pool resources, share knowledge, and protect each other from outside threats. Moreover, the Maya people have a rich oral tradition that has helped them to preserve their history and culture. Despite the Spanish attempts to eradicate indigenous religions and beliefs, the Maya continued to pass down their stories, songs, and beliefs through oral traditions. This allowed them to keep their cultural identity alive even when they were forbidden to practice their religion or speak their native languages. Today, the Maya people are thriving. They are an integral part of Central American society, and their culture is celebrated around the world. They have made significant contributions to the arts, sciences, and politics, and they continue to be a vibrant and dynamic community. In conclusion, the Maya people are a remarkable example of resilience and adaptability. They have been able to maintain their cultural identity and thrive despite centuries of oppression. We can learn from their example by embracing diversity, celebrating cultural differences, and standing up for what we believe in. By doing so, we can honor the legacy of the Maya people and ensure that their story is never forgotten. The Maya people have been subjected to forced labor, slavery, and cultural suppression for centuries. But throughout all of this, they have held on to their traditions and customs. They've kept their language alive, and their art forms have continued to flourish. The Maya people are a testament to the power of the human spirit and its ability to endure even in the darkest of times. Their story is one of resilience, adaptability, and cultural preservation. It's a story that needs to be told and celebrated. So, what are your thoughts on the Maya people and their incredible story? How do you think they've been able to preserve their culture and identity for so long? And what can we learn from their example? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Also, if you enjoyed this video, please like it and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching. Look at this. This is the largest pyramid in the world. It's 200 feet tall, which is taller than the Great Pyramid of Giza. It was built by an ancient civilization without the use of steel, concrete, or mortar. So, who built it and how? The answer is a civilization called the Maya, and they built it using limestone and precise engineering techniques. But there's a problem. As we continue to uncover more of their secrets, it seems like there's something missing from the picture. You see, all around the base of this pyramid are stairways that lead to a series of caves below ground. These caves contain many different chambers and passageways, but the problem is that some of these chambers are completely empty. And even though researchers have uncovered evidence of people living here, they don't know where everyone went. In fact, there's one chamber known as the Temple of the Inscriptions, where archaeologists found hundreds of valuable artifacts, including jade ornaments, ceramic vessels, and jewelry made out of rock crystal. But they didn't find any skeletons. It's almost as if the people living here just vanished into thin air. So why did the Maya build these pyramids only to abandon them right after? Well, we may finally have the answer. But first, we need to go back in time. Thousands of years ago, the Maya lived in what is now southern Mexico, Guatemala, and Belize. And while there were many different Maya city-states, they all shared a common language, religion, and writing system. They developed a complex calendar system based on astronomical observations, created impressive works of art and architecture, and their cities were often home to towering pyramids. The reason for this is because the Maya believed that the earth was a sacred place that needed to be honored. In their worldview, the natural world was full of spirits, and their cities were meant to be in harmony with the environment. That's why the Maya built their cities in places like rainforests, jungles, and swamps. They wanted to live in close proximity to nature and take advantage of the resources that it provided. But there was a catch. While the Maya respected nature, they also had a desire for power and control, and this desire led to deforestation, soil erosion, and a loss of biodiversity. In other words, they were destroying the very thing that they revered so much. Now, most people would probably assume that this didn't happen until the Industrial Revolution, but that's not true. Humans have been altering the environment since we first set foot on this planet, and the Maya were no exception. For example, the Maya built dams to control flooding, cleared forests for farmland, and hunted animals for food. At first, this didn't seem to be a problem. The Maya were able to grow crops, raise livestock, and live in harmony with the environment. But over time, things started to change. As the Maya population grew, so did their impact on the environment. More people meant more farmland, more dams, and more hunting. And as the forests were cut down and the soil was depleted, the Maya began to lose control over the forces of nature. Floods became more frequent, droughts lasted longer, and there were even reports of hurricanes. This caused the Maya to become desperate. They tried everything they could to control the environment, but nothing worked. And eventually they had to flee their homes and abandon their cities. It's important to remember that this didn't happen overnight. It was a slow and gradual process that took place over many, many years. But eventually the Maya cities were completely abandoned, and their advanced civilization fell apart. Now, some people might say that this is just a theory and there's no way of knowing for sure what happened to the Maya. And that's true. There are many different theories about why the Maya declined, but we may never know for sure. However, there is evidence to support this theory, and it makes sense given what we know about the Maya and their environment. The Maya showed us the strength of knowledge and the importance of respecting nature, but it also showed us the cost when we lose balance with the environment. If you think about it, this story isn't just about the Maya. It's a story about all of us. We live in a world where we're constantly trying to control nature and bend it to our will. We've developed new technologies that allow us to alter the environment like never before. And yet, we still haven't learned our lesson. We're still cutting down forests, polluting the water, and destroying habitats. And as we do this, we're losing touch with the natural world around us. One of the biggest problems is that we've become disconnected from nature. We live in cities and towns where we're surrounded by concrete and steel. We're not exposed to the natural world, and we don't have to deal with the consequences of our actions. We can turn on the TV and watch nature documentaries, but that's not the same thing as actually being in nature. Another problem is that we've become too comfortable. We've developed new technologies and conveniences that make our lives easier. But in doing so, we've lost our ability to survive on our own. For example, we rely on machines to grow our food and deliver it to our stores. But if those machines break down, we won't know how to grow food ourselves. Finally, we've become too dependent on fossil fuels. They've allowed us to travel the world and develop new technologies. But in doing so, we've polluted the air and caused climate change. If we lose access to fossil fuels, we won't be able to maintain our current way of life. These are some of the challenges that we face today, but they're not insurmountable. There are things that we can do to address these issues and create a better future for ourselves. First, we need to reconnect with nature. This doesn't mean that we have to go live in the forest, but we can make an effort to spend more time outdoors. We can go hiking, camping, or simply sit in a park and enjoy the fresh air. By spending time in nature, we'll begin to understand the importance of preserving it. Second, we need to learn to live more simply. We don't need the latest gadgets and conveniences to be happy. In fact, sometimes they only make our lives more complicated. By learning to live more simply, we'll be better prepared to deal with whatever challenges come our way. And third, we need to find alternative sources of energy. Fossil fuels are running out and they're damaging the environment. We need to invest in renewable sources of energy like solar and wind power. By doing so, we'll be able to reduce our impact on the environment and ensure that we have energy for future generations. These are just a few of the things that we can do, but the most important thing is that we need to start doing something. The Maya taught us the importance of living in harmony with nature. It's time that we listened to their wisdom and took action to protect the environment. If we don't, then we may end up like the Maya, without a home and without a future. If you enjoyed this story, please follow for more updates, and if you'd like to learn more about the Maya, I highly recommend checking out a book called The Maya by Michael D. Coe. It's a great resource for anyone who wants to learn more about this fascinating civilization. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. On the 16th of August in 2016, a dam collapsed in the Italian region of Veneto, unleashing a wave of mud that destroyed an entire village. The torrent consumed buildings, swept people away, and caused $40 million worth of damage. But it wasn't just a sudden disaster. It was the culmination of a story that had been written in the stars a year before. In the foothills of the Alps, the small village of Rigolato was just another picturesque piece of Italy. Its cobblestone streets, terracotta roofs, and Renaissance churches blended seamlessly into the mountainside. It was exactly what you'd expect from a village that was 800 years old. Just one thing was out of place. Behind the historic center stood a massive dam holding back a lake full of water. This wasn't part of the original landscape. The artificial reservoir had been created when the river Piave had been blocked off in 1950. The resulting Lake Santa Maria della Nave provided hydroelectric power for the surrounding towns and gave them a place to swim in the summer heat. But after 66 years, this idyllic scene would change drastically. A few months before the fateful collapse, the local weather station had recorded the driest winter in 70 years. The lack of rainfall turned the riverbed into a cracked wasteland, and the normally full lake became a shriveled shadow of its former self. In July, authorities began to get worried and reduced the amount of water they withdrew from the lake. But it wasn't enough. By August, the situation had become critical. The Italian government deployed 2 C-130 military planes to drop 30 tons of water over the parched land. But nature doesn't take kindly to such meddling. And instead of rain, the skies unleashed something far more destructive. During the night of August, storms raged over the region, dumping unbelievable amounts of water over the already saturated ground. And this is where the story of the Vajont Dam takes a dark turn. You see, the area around Longato had experienced something similar back in 1963. Back then, the same river had overflowed, killing 14 people and causing widespread damage. To prevent another flood, they had built a massive concrete wall to hold the river back. But no one could have predicted how dangerous this move would prove to be. When the water levels rose again in 1963, the newly constructed dam trapped a staggering 160 million cubic meters of water behind its wall. To make matters worse, the reservoir was gradually being filled by more sediment and sludge, which raised the water level even higher. Eventually, the contents of the lake were so heavy that they began pushing against the base of the dam. But the engineers didn't realize just how much pressure they were facing. They assumed that the weight of the water would only affect the upstream side. But in reality, the downstream side was also taking the brunt of the impact. As the water pressure mounted, the soil beneath the dam began shifting and moving downstream. Nobody noticed this at first because there was a thick layer of impermeable clay between the water and the surface. But once the water level dropped, the true scale of the problem became clear. In total, the dam had sunk by nearly half a meter, and things weren't going to get any better anytime soon. The engineers knew that their structure was in danger of collapsing, but they believed that they had some time to figure out a solution. But nature never gives you a second chance. On the evening of July, the engineers left work early because the next day was a national holiday. It would be the last day they'd ever spend alive. The following morning, the workers arrived at the dam to find a horrifying sight. That night, the water pressure had finally overcome the strength of the structure and the earth had split open. A gigantic crack now ran through the middle of the dam, allowing water to surge through. All attempts to stop the leak proved futile. The entire dam was doomed. At first, the water escaped slowly, but within hours it became a raging torrent. People tried to flee, but it was too late. Waves of water up to 30 feet high crashed through the valley. Homes were washed away, trees were uprooted, and the raging waters carved a new path for the river below. Before long, the small village of Longato was nothing but a memory. In total, 2,600 people lost their homes and 65 lives were taken by the floods. So how could something like this happen? Well, it started with a series of bad decisions. First, the locals had objected to the construction of the dam because they feared flooding. Their concerns were ignored. Then the dam's engineers had failed to factor in the weight of the water and sludge behind the structure. But these mistakes would have been forgivable if it hadn't been for one crucial oversight. You see, the area near the dam was full of weak rock, clay, and shale. Any engineer would have recommended drilling holes to determine the stability of the ground. But when the time came, the geologist responsible refused to do his job. He claimed that the ground was too hard to drill, which may have saved him from trouble, but it cost countless lives. When the dam broke, it was clear that someone was going to pay for all this destruction. But to everyone's surprise, the victims were blamed for the disaster. The judge determined that the people living along the river had known about the dangers of flooding and should have evacuated sooner. Because of this ruling, most of the victims never received compensation for their losses. But even that wouldn't have happened if it hadn't been for one final error. The town's mayor had warned the residents about the rising water levels, but he hadn't issued a mandatory evacuation order. Had he done so, many more people may have survived. But he knew that this would devastate the local economy. So he took the risk, but it was one that would eventually cost him his life. After the devastating loss, the Italians vowed to never let anything like this happen again. They rebuilt their towns, reinforced their dams, and learned from their mistakes. But sometimes fate has a way of repeating itself. Almost 60 years later, another Italian dam was showing worrying signs of instability. The 220-foot-tall structure was built in 1950 and held back the waters of a nearby lake. But since then, erosion had weakened its foundations, and the once proud dam was in desperate need of repair. Unfortunately, the plans for renovation were delayed due to bureaucracy, and nobody was willing to take responsibility. That all changed on the 3rd of May in 2014 when the cracks finally spread across the dam. Emergency repairs were immediately put into action, but the situation quickly got out of hand. Workers tried to inject chemicals into the cracks to solidify them, but the process took longer than expected, and during the procedure, the dam started to leak. Despite the urgency, the engineers made another critical mistake. They failed to account for the extra weight of the water used to fill the void. This worsened the cracks and caused the dam to sink further. Within days, the whole structure was on the verge of collapse. Authorities realized the gravity of the situation and ordered the nearby towns to evacuate. Thousands of people fled their homes and lined the hillsides, watching anxiously as the dam struggled to contain the waters. But it was only a matter of time. On the 9th of May, a year after the first sign of trouble, the dam burst. A terrifying roar echoed across the valley as millions of gallons of water flooded the landscape. Miraculously, there were no casualties. But the damage was catastrophic. Farmland was wiped away, roads buckled, and a bridge collapsed. The floods reached the town of Vosala, destroying everything in their path. The cleanup operation was swift and efficient. With the help of the army, the people returned to survey the damage. Some of the houses were habitable, but the locals knew that this wouldn't last. Over the coming weeks, cracks began appearing in the foundations and the walls started to crumble. Soon, the entire town looked like a war zone. Entire blocks of buildings had to be demolished. But the people of Wasala were determined to rebuild. Once again, they learned from the past and planned for a better future. The new Wasala was built to withstand earthquakes and protect against floods. But no one could predict what Mother Nature had in store for them. 4 years later, the worst storm in a century hit the Italian coast. Strong winds and torrential rains battered the region, causing rivers to overflow and roads to collapse. Once again, thousands of people were forced to flee their homes. Now watch. Most dangerous dams in the world, or check out. This village was abandoned 100 years ago. Why are people still afraid to go there? There are 2 ways to live your life. The first is as an individual, pursuing your own desires and dreams, consuming media, being part of trends. The second way to live your life is in solitude, dedicating your life to a higher purpose, renouncing the pleasures of the world, spending all your time in constant struggle against the evils that surround us. Some people spend most of their lives pursuing both of these at the same time. They're on social media for hours a day, dreaming of becoming influencers while going to work as janitors or truck drivers. But some people throughout history have lived a very different life. A life so dedicated to one purpose that they forgot about all other desires, even the desire to survive. That last part is what interests me the most. Why do some people prefer death over life? What drives someone to choose that path? These questions can only be answered by looking at the individuals who chose it. And today we're going to look at one such person, the man who built his own tomb before dying. Nam, the founder of Buddhism, once said that all the wisdom in the world cannot stop the inevitable march of time. He was right. Nothing lasts forever, neither does anything for eternity. Everything eventually collapses. In the case of civilizations, it usually happens slowly over the course of many years. But sometimes entire cities collapse in an instant. What collapsed was not their wisdom, but the cities they left behind in silence. Herodotus once said that Athens was the greatest city the sun had ever shone upon. It was a city of unparalleled beauty, home to great philosophers and the birthplace of democracy. It was also home to one man, the man who would design his own tomb, a tomb that no Athenian would be allowed to rest in. His name was Cyrus. Little is known about him, except that he was the son of a wealthy landowner who lived around the year 320 BC in Thebes, one of Greece's most powerful city-states at the time. Cyrus's father owned vineyards, olive groves, and silver mines across Boeotia. As you can imagine, he was rich, but despite his wealth, he knew how unpredictable life could be. No one stays rich forever. Wars happen, economies crash, and inflation will make your money worthless. So he made sure that if he were to die, his son would inherit everything he had. So he made sure his son would live for eternity. Cyrus spent all his free time learning the secrets of preserving human remains. At the time, mummies were all the rage among the Egyptians, so much so that some Greek philosophers mocked them for their obsession with preserving dead bodies. Yet Cyrus saw something more in mummification than just preserving a body. He saw a way of keeping his soul alive. When done properly, mummification wasn't just about preserving the body, it was about preserving the soul as well. According to Egyptian beliefs, the process of mummification helped the deceased in their journey to the afterlife. Mummies weren't just preserved. They were also supplied with things they might need in the afterlife, like food, clothes, and even servants. For the Egyptians, mummies weren't just dead bodies, they were vessels of the soul. So Cyrus started building a tomb for himself, but he didn't want just any tomb. He wanted the greatest tomb ever built, He hired the best architects and artists from across the known world to build him a tomb that would outlive his legacy. But there was a problem. Pete Osiris was too eager to see his masterpiece finished. He wanted to build his tomb while he was still alive. So he could walk through the halls he designed, sit in the gardens he planned, and admire the paintings he commissioned. Make sure everything was up to his standards. So he did the unthinkable. He hired a group of the best engineers and architects and told them to build him a tomb he could live in. The construction began, but soon enough the workers realized the task before them was impossible. How could they build a tomb worthy of their employer without using stone? Stone tombs were too heavy and they would risk collapsing. Wooden tombs were too flammable and they would attract termites. And brick tombs were too cheap and easily destroyed. After weeks of thinking, one architect had a brilliant idea. They would build Pete Osiris's tomb out of mud. Mud bricks were cheap, durable, fireproof, and had excellent thermal insulation. Plus, they could be carved into almost any shape imaginable. So the workers got to work building mud brick walls, rooms, and hallways. Within months, a magnificent palace made entirely of mud bricks rose above the ground. The workers then decorated the walls with colorful paintings depicting scenes from mythology and daily life. While this was happening, the workers kept digging deeper and deeper into the ground. Eventually, they had created a labyrinth of tunnels and rooms that spanned across several acres beneath the surface. This underground complex would serve as Pete Osiris's final resting place. But for now, he still had years to live, so he moved into his new palace. He furnished the rooms with couches, tables, and chairs. He filled the courtyards with flowers and trees. He built temples and shrines, and he even invited his friends and family to live with him. Soon enough, the entire complex was turned into a city. There were schools, shops, and even brothels. And it became the center of trade between Thebes and Athens. For a while, everything was perfect. Pete Osiris was able to observe his tomb from within it, and he could admire his creation, which had become a city of its own. But it wasn't meant to be. One day, Pete Osiris felt sick and went to see the doctor. The doctor told him he wouldn't survive the night, so he went back home and made arrangements for his funeral. He wrote a will, gave away his possessions, and summoned his priests. Then he laid down on his couch and waited to die. But he didn't die that night or the next day, nor did he die the following week. He lived for 2 whole years. Needless to say, no one was happy about this. Pete Osiris was miserable because he had to watch his city turn into a prison. His priests were miserable because they couldn't perform his funeral rites. And the citizens were miserable because they had to deal with the stench coming from a rotting corpse. Eventually, after 2 years, Pete Osiris finally died. His funeral was one of the greatest spectacles in ancient Greece. People came from all over to see the burial of a man who had cheated death itself. The priests carried his coffin to the underground complex where it had been prepared for centuries. The coffin was made of gold and silver, and it was adorned with paintings of gods and heroes. It was placed in the center of a huge chamber, surrounded by offerings of food, drink, and treasures. Then the priests sealed the entrance to the chamber with thick stone doors, leaving Pete Osiris to rest in peace. Or so they thought. In reality, Pete Osiris's coffin was thrown into the trash pile. The people of Thebes had no use for the corpse of a man who had abandoned them, and they simply forgot about him until archaeologists discovered his tomb in the 19th century. We don't know what happened to his family or the people who lived in his city, nor do we know what prompted him to abandon them. Maybe he had made a mistake. Maybe he regretted his decisions. But whatever the reason, he never got the chance to return. His tomb, which had been designed to keep his body alive, ended up being his prison for eternity. And that's the end of our story. But before we go, I'd like to ask you something. Why do you think Pete Osiris built his tomb before dying? Do you think he knew his time was running out? Or was he just obsessed with the afterlife? Let us know in the comments below. Also, if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. Thanks for watching. Trees have grown through the cracks in these walls for so long that they've become part of the building itself. In today's video, we are going to explore a place where centuries ago, bustling markets thrived, ornate temples stood tall, and life teemed in all its vibrancy. But over the years, the relentless march of time and the whims of nature have caused this once thriving civilization to be completely forgotten, leaving behind only crumbling ruins shrouded by the dense foliage of the jungle. Join me as we embark on a journey back in time to uncover the secrets of this lost world and discover the fascinating stories behind these ancient structures. Our exploration begins in the heart of the jungle, where centuries-old trees stand as silent sentinels guarding the remnants of a bygone era. As we venture deeper into this emerald labyrinth, we will uncover the hidden gems that lie beneath the canopy, witnessing the incredible power of nature to reclaim what was once lost to time. Prepare to be amazed by the breathtaking beauty of the jungle and the fascinating stories that unfold before our eyes. The first structure we encounter is a testament to the ingenuity and craftsmanship of the ancient builders who created it. This temple, once a place of worship and cultural significance, now stands in ruins, its intricate carving swallowed by the embrace of the jungle. The temple's design reflects the deep connection the ancient civilization had with nature, with its architecture seamlessly blending into the surrounding environment. As we explore the overgrown pathways and gaze upon the weathered statues, we can't help but feel a sense of awe at the rich history that surrounds us. The jungle has slowly reclaimed this temple, causing some parts of it to collapse while others remain standing defiantly against the relentless passage of time. Vines have grown around the pillars, forming a natural tapestry that hides the faded frescoes that once adorned the temple walls. Lush vegetation obscures the intricate details of the sculptures, adding an air of mystery to their weathered forms. It is as though the jungle itself is trying to preserve these ancient relics by keeping them hidden from the outside world. As we wander through the temple grounds, the sound of birdsong fills the air, mingling with the rustling of leaves to create a symphony of nature's resilience. The jungle has not just swallowed this temple, it has become an integral part of its story, reminding us that even the mightiest of creations are not impervious to the relentless march of time. The sight of the jungle reclaiming the temple teaches us about the cyclical nature of life and the interconnectedness of all living things. It encourages us to appreciate the beauty of the natural world and the importance of preserving our cultural heritage for future generations. As we continue our journey deeper into the jungle, we can't help but feel inspired by the resilience of the human spirit and the enduring power of nature. Emerging from the thick undergrowth, we come across a vast open space that was once the bustling center of the city. Here, the jungle has laid down its arms, revealing a glimpse of the city's former glory. In the center of this vast plaza, we find a well-preserved pyramid, its imposing presence still standing strong after all these years. The pyramid, once a symbol of power and civilization, now serves as a backdrop to the encroaching jungle. Its sharp angles and smooth surfaces contrast sharply with the lush greenery that surrounds it, creating a striking visual display of man and nature's eternal struggle. As we climb to the top of the pyramid, the dense foliage below us parts like a green sea, offering a panoramic view of the entire city. From this vantage point, we can truly appreciate the scale and grandeur of the ancient city and the surrounding jungle. We marvel at the ingenuity of those who built such an impressive structure so many years ago, and we ponder the mysteries of their culture and way of life. As the sun begins its descent, casting long shadows across the jungle floor, we make our way back down the pyramid and continue our exploration of the ancient city. The fading light filters through the trees, creating a magical atmosphere that adds to the allure of this lost civilization. With each step we take, we feel a sense of wonder and excitement at the prospect of uncovering more secrets of the past. As darkness falls and the sounds of the jungle intensify, we know it's time to rest. We set up camp for the night, and around the flickering light of our campfire we share stories and laughter with newfound friends. The stars twinkle above us, and the gentle breeze carries the sounds of the nocturnal jungle, reminding us of the timeless beauty of the natural world. As we drift off to sleep, we dream of the ancient builders and the bustling city that once thrived here, and we eagerly anticipate the adventures that await us on the next day's journey. Waking to the chorus of birdsong and the soft rustle of the jungle, we rise early to catch the sunrise over the ancient city. As the first rays of light illuminate the canopy, we witness a breathtaking spectacle of color and beauty that leaves us in awe. The towering trees are transformed into silhouettes against the vibrant sky, and the jungle floor is bathed in a soft, ethereal glow. Inspired by the majestic sunrise, we set out to explore further, venturing into the dense undergrowth to uncover more hidden treasures. Our journey takes us to a clearing where we stumble upon the remains of a marketplace. The cobblestone streets are still visible, along with the outlines of stalls and shops that once bustled with activity. Here, merchants would have traded their wares, artisans displayed their crafts, and locals gathered to exchange news and ideas. As we walk among the ruins of the marketplace, we imagine the sights, sounds, and smells that once filled the air. The vibrant colors of spices and fabrics, the enticing aromas of food and flowers, and the lively chatter of vendors and customers all come to life in our imaginations. The discovery of the marketplace gives us a glimpse into the daily life of the ancient city and its inhabitants. We learn about their customs, traditions, and way of life, and we gain a deeper appreciation for the complexity and richness of their culture. As we continue our exploration of the marketplace, we find remnants of everyday objects, such as broken pottery, rusted tools, and worn coins. These artifacts offer a tangible connection to the people who lived here centuries ago, allowing us to piece together their story and better understand their world. The marketplace is not just a collection of ruins, but a window into the past that reveals the everyday realities of life in an ancient civilization. It reminds us that behind the grand monuments and historical accounts, there were ordinary people going about their daily lives. As we journey deeper into the jungle, we come across another remarkable structure, a watchtower that once stood guard over the city. The tower, with its sturdy construction and elevated position, played a vital role in the defense and surveillance of the city. From its peak, the ancient inhabitants could keep watch for approaching armies or potential threats, ensuring the safety of their community. As we climb the narrow staircase to the top of the tower, we imagine the brave soldiers who stood here, ready to protect their city. We picture them scanning the horizon with keen eyes, always vigilant and prepared to defend their home. Once at the summit, we are rewarded with a breathtaking panoramic view of the jungle and the ruins of the city. The dense foliage below us stretches as far as the eye can see, broken only by the occasional crumbling wall or overgrown pathway. The wind whispers through the trees, carrying the scent of the jungle and the distant call of exotic birds. As we stand here, high above the jungle floor, we feel a sense of tranquility and connection to the natural world that surrounds us. The watchtower is not just a relic of the past, but a symbol of the resilience and adaptability of the human spirit. It reminds us of the lengths to which people will go to protect their homes and loved ones, and the importance of community and cooperation in the face of adversity. As we descend from the tower and continue our journey, we carry with us the lessons and inspiration that it offers. And so our journey through the lost world comes to an end. As we emerge from the clutches of the jungle, we do so with heavy hearts, knowing that we are leaving behind a place of immense beauty and mystery. The jungle has fiercely guarded its secrets for centuries, and we have been fortunate enough to catch a glimpse of its hidden wonders. The ancient city, with its magnificent structures and bustling markets, has captured our imagination and left an indelible mark on our souls. We have marveled at the intricate details of the temple's architecture and the grandeur of the pyramid that pierces the sky. The marketplace has brought to life the everyday aspects of life in the ancient city, while the watchtower has reminded us of the strength and resilience of the human spirit. As we reflect on our experiences, we realize that we have not just explored a lost world, but have also discovered a part of ourselves. The ancient city's enduring legacy has touched us deeply, and we carry with us the memories of our journey as we move forward in our own lives. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more. Thank you for joining us on this adventure, and we look forward to sharing more exciting discoveries with you in the future. Until then, keep exploring and stay curious. They were one of the most successful bands in history, selling more than 200 million records worldwide, earning 18 Grammy Awards and being inducted into both the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and the Songwriters Hall of Fame. They had hit after hit from 1967's Light My Fire to 1971's Riders on the Storm. And they did it with a sound unlike any other band at the time, thanks to their legendary light show, which made them seem like an intergalactic rock opera come to life. Their music videos are still among the best ever made. And their influence on fashion and culture during the late 60s and early 70s was second only to the Beatles at their peak. But who were they? And how did such a talented group of musicians completely fall apart just as quickly as they rose to fame? Welcome to the dark story of Jim Morrison, Ray Manzarek, Robbie Krieger, and the Doors. I want to start this story in 1971. As the Doors were reaching new heights of success with albums like L.A. Woman, they also descended into chaos. In fact, by the time they recorded their final album, L.A. Woman, tensions were so high that the band broke up before they'd even finished it. Jim Morrison walked out after the recording of the first single, Riders on the Storm, because he was tired of being told what to do by the other members. A few months later, he was found dead in his Paris apartment of a heart attack brought on by years of drug abuse. His bandmates never quite got over it. Manzarek would say in an interview, "It was a shock. I mean, we thought he was invincible." Robbie Krieger added, "We always knew the Doors without Jim was no good. I don't think we could have carried on without him." And yet carry on they did, releasing 2 more albums without Morrison, but neither came close to matching the success of their previous work, and eventually they too gave up, calling it quits in 1973. So why am I telling you all of this? Well, because the story of the Doors is filled with these kinds of tragedies, deaths, addictions, breakups, betrayals, and yet despite all of this, the Doors remain one of the most important and influential bands of all time. Their legacy lives on through their music, which continues to be loved by millions around the world. So how did this happen? How did a group of friends from Los Angeles manage to create some of the greatest music of all time before descending into chaos and tragedy? Well, let's go back to the beginning. The story of the Doors begins not with Jim Morrison, but with Ray Manzarek. After studying music in college, Manzarek formed a jazz combo called the Rick and the Rollers, then became the house musician at a hotel bar called the London West. It was here that he met Robbie Krieger, a guitarist who soon joined him as the group's second member. The pair then placed an ad in the newspaper looking for a singer, and were soon contacted by none other than Jim Morrison, who at the time was working as a musician, poet, and actor. Morrison had been in a band before called The Seeds, but after being fired for drug problems, he was looking for a new group to join. When he met Manzarek and Krieger, however, he wasn't the same person that they had seen play with The Seeds. Instead, he wowed them with an original song called Moonlight Drive. And after jamming together for a while, the three decided to form a band. They needed a bass player, though, and soon found him in the unlikely place of UCLA, where Morrison himself was enrolled. The bassist was named John Densmore, and once the 4 of them started playing together, there was simply no denying their talent. They were unlike any other band around, and soon they attracted the attention of several record labels, eventually signing with Elektra Records. But when it came to choosing a name for the group, the boys couldn't agree. For a while, they went by several names including The Doors of Perception, The Few, and The Angry. But in the end, they settled on simply The Doors. The name came from novelist Aldous Huxley, who in his book, The Doors of Perception, described how he took mescaline for the first time and saw the world around him transform into something magical and mystical. This idea of expanding your mind through music is something that would become synonymous with the band throughout their career. In 1965, the Doors released their self-titled debut album, which featured several of their early hits, including Light My Fire. But it wasn't until 1967 that they really exploded onto the scene. That year, they released their second album, Strange Days, followed by their third album, The Soft Parade. In 1969, they released Morrison Hotel, and then finally in 1970, L.A. Woman. All of these albums went multi-platinum, making the Doors one of the biggest bands in the world. Throughout this time, the Doors also gained a reputation for their legendary live shows. Thanks to their innovative use of light and sound effects, every concert was like a psychedelic experience, transporting audiences to another dimension. Some people even claimed that the Doors' concerts were the closest thing to a religious experience that you could have. And this isn't surprising when you consider that their music often dealt with themes of spirituality, mysticism, and the search for enlightenment. In fact, some of their songs like Riders on the Storm and The End are considered to be among the greatest rock songs of all time. But behind the scenes, things were starting to unravel. Morrison was becoming increasingly erratic and unpredictable, showing up late or not at all to rehearsals and performances. He was also taking more and more drugs, which caused him to lose weight, hair, and eventually his sanity. Meanwhile, Manzarek and Densmore were growing tired of Morrison's antics and wanted to fire him. But they knew that if they did, the band would likely fall apart. So instead, they tried to keep things together for as long as possible. By 1971, though, it was clear that the Doors as they knew it was over. Morrison died of a heart attack on July 3, 1971, at the age of 27. He was found dead in his apartment by his girlfriend, Pamela Corson. An autopsy revealed that he died of a pulmonary edema, which is fluid on the lungs, which was caused by barbiturate intoxication. Morrison was cremated, and his ashes were scattered in the Seine River in Paris. The remaining members of the Doors went on to release 2 more albums without Morrison, but neither were successful. In 1973, they officially disbanded. Since then, there have been several attempts to reunite the surviving members, but it never quite came together. In 1992, Krieger and Densmore played together again for the first time in nearly 20 years for the film The Doors. And in 1997, they reunited again for a series of concerts in New York City. However, Manzarek refused to participate, saying that he didn't want to be a part of some cheap nostalgia act. He did, however, make an appearance at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremony in 1993, where he performed Light My Fire with the surviving members. In 2013, Krieger and Densmore reunited once again for a tour, performing hits like Riders on the Storm and The End. Unfortunately, Manzarek was unable to join them due to his battle with cancer. He died in 2020 at the age of 74. As for the band's legacy, well, they continue to be one of the most popular and influential groups of all time. Their music has been featured in countless films, TV shows, and commercials, and has been covered by artists like Guns N' Roses, U2, and the Smashing Pumpkins. But perhaps the greatest testament to their influence is that there is still no band today that sounds like the Doors. Their unique blend of rock, poetry, and psychedelia was truly groundbreaking and continues to inspire musicians around the world. And now it's time to make your voice heard. What did you think of this video? Let me know in the comments below, and if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe for more content like this. Thanks for watching. Until next time. They say nothing lasts forever, and we know that when it comes to power, no one stays at the top forever. But sometimes there's a deeper truth to their fall, something that history tells us is worth remembering. The year is 2011. The place, the United States of America. The prisoner, Osama bin Laden. After years of searching, he has been found and killed by Navy SEALs. And while this event is not in question, the story around it is what interests me. See, the U.S. government had a plan for this day, A protocol developed to ensure that bin Laden's body would be handled correctly. This protocol included photographing him before burial. But things didn't go as planned. We all know that now, thanks to the book and movie Zero Dark 30. As the Navy SEALs closed in on bin Laden, one of them yelled, "Get me pictures." It wasn't part of the plan, but everyone knew this moment could be their only chance. So they took a picture of bin Laden on his bloody floor. That picture was supposed to be destroyed after being used for identification. But someone leaked it, and soon the world was looking at the proof of bin Laden's death. Was it worth it? Well, some thought so. Others said it made no difference because bin Laden was already dead. So why take a victory lap on a dead man's corpse? I'll leave that for you to decide. What I find interesting is the fact that that picture exists at all. Had they not taken it, people might have doubted the news of bin Laden's death. Do you remember how people said we needed proof that Saddam Hussein was really in charge of Iraq, or that Gaddafi was killed in Libya? We can be a skeptical bunch, especially when it comes to those in power. And I'm sure if the SEALs hadn't taken that picture, people would have said the same about bin Laden. But because they did, we were able to see the proof. Sometimes we just want to make sure. We don't want to celebrate too early. We need to see with our own eyes. It's human nature. Now, bin Laden was clearly an evil man. He didn't deserve a proper burial. No one would mourn his passing. But think about the men who worked so hard to bring him down. They deserved a moment of celebration, even if it was just taking a picture of the man they had hunted for years. Bin Laden became a symbol of evil. He represented everything people hated about the U.S. war on terror. So capturing him and killing him was not just a job. It was personal. I don't think these men needed a reason to do their job, but bin Laden gave them one. In the end, they did it anyway. And bin Laden didn't get a proper burial, but his face ended up on a lot of front pages. He got no ceremony, but he was put on display. When you think about other dictators and criminals, the ones who actually got caught, they often get a similar ending. When Hitler died, his remains were burned and then buried in a shallow grave. It wasn't much of a burial, but it was enough to show that it was done. You see, when someone has done horrible things, when they have caused pain and suffering, when they have threatened the lives and safety of others, we kind of like to see that they are really gone. We want to make sure. Even if we don't mourn their passing, we still want to see proof. And this makes sense, doesn't it? If we can't see the person, if we can't see the proof, it's easy to imagine that they could come back. It's easy to imagine that they could strike again. And if you're planning on moving on, if you're planning on going forward, you can't do that until you've seen the proof. You can't do that until you've looked into the abyss and realized that the monster is gone. But not everyone understands this. Not everyone needs this closure. When Kim Jong-nam was assassinated in 2017, the whole world mourned the passing of yet another dictator. But many people also wondered why North Korea hadn't retaliated against the country responsible, Malaysia. Why didn't they go to war? Why didn't they take revenge? And this is when a reporter from the Daily Mail came up with an idea. She wanted to write an article about North Korean defectors who lived in Malaysia, and she hoped that maybe Kim Jong-un would retaliate against her country. You see, it's important to understand why Kim Jong-nam was killed. He was killed because he represented everything that Kim Jong-un wanted to change about his country. He was a symbol of the old North Korea, a time when the country was more open to the world. And while Kim Jong-un wants to take North Korea to the future, he also wants to take it backwards. He wants to cut himself off from the world, just like his father and grandfather did. And to do that, he needed to send a message to his people. He needed to show them that he was in charge and that no one was safe. And what better way to do that than by targeting his own brother? By showing the world that family wasn't safe either. Kim Jong-un sent shockwaves across the world. He showed everyone that he meant business. And after such a bold move, he didn't need to attack anyone else. He had made his point clear. The reporter from the Daily Mail understood this, which is why she reached out to the North Korean defectors living in Malaysia. She wanted to see if Kim Jong-un would retaliate against her country. And this goes to show you how important it is to understand the motivations behind certain actions. You can't just look at the surface. You can't just look at the facts. You have to dig deeper. You have to try and understand why things are happening the way they are. Because once you understand that, you can start to predict what might happen next. I'll give you another example. The year is 2011, and the place is Syria. The dictator is Bashar al-Assad. And for years he has been ruling with an iron fist. But now the people have had enough. They have risen up against him, and the civil war has begun. And just like Kim Jong-un, Assad needs to send a message to his people. He needs to show them that he is in charge and that no one is safe. And what better way to do that than by attacking civilians? By bombing hospitals, schools, and mosques. Assad sends shockwaves across the country. He shows everyone that he means business. And this goes to show you that sometimes it's not just about seeing the proof. It's also about sending a message. It's about letting everyone know that you're in charge. And in the case of Assad, he needed to show his people that he was not afraid to use any force necessary to maintain control. But this brings me back to bin Laden. His death was not just about seeing the proof. It was also about sending a message. It was about letting the world know that the mastermind behind 9/11 was no longer a threat. The problem is that some people never get this message. Some people never see the proof. And that's why conspiracy theories exist. That's why people still ask questions. Take, for example, the recent earthquake that hit Turkey and Syria. It was one of the deadliest earthquakes in modern history. It caused widespread damage and thousands of deaths. But some people refused to believe that it happened. They said it was fake, that it was staged by the government. And this is probably because they don't trust the government. They feel like they have been lied to in the past, so they don't believe anything they hear. Or maybe they just don't want to accept the reality that so many people have died. Either way, it doesn't change the fact that the earthquake happened. It doesn't change the fact that thousands of people lost their lives. And this brings me back to the main point of this video. Their fall was not the end, but a transformation written in stone and memory. Think about it. When someone falls from grace, when someone is brought down from their pedestal, they don't just disappear. They become part of our collective memory. They become part of our culture. And this is what happened to bin Laden. He fell from grace, but he will never be forgotten. And this is both a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing because it reminds us of the evil that he did. It reminds us of the innocent lives that he ruined. And it's a curse because it means that his legacy will live on. It means that his name will be whispered in fear for generations to come. So the next time you hear someone say that power never lasts forever, remember that they are right. But also remember that there is more to the story. Because sometimes when someone falls, they don't just disappear. They become part of our collective memory. They become part of our culture. And that is what happened to bin Laden. This is all that remains of El Pilar, a Maya city hidden deep in the jungle. For centuries, it was one of the largest and most important cities in the Maya world. But today, you can barely find any trace of it. The towering pyramids are gone, and all that's left is a collection of crumbling walls. So, how did this once great city fall into ruin? Well, that's what we'll investigate today. Welcome to my channel. The Maya were some of the most ingenious builders in the ancient world. Over a period of 2,000 years, they constructed dozens of magnificent cities. They built temples with steep pyramid shapes decorated with intricate carvings and palaces with charming courtyards. And they adorned each structure with vibrant paintings and sculptures. In fact, their architecture was so impressive that some people believe the Maya must have used advanced technology, even though there's no evidence for this. Now we know that the Maya didn't have skyscrapers, but if they had, they would have been right at home in modern New York City because the Maya loved building tall structures. Tikal was a Maya city in what is now Guatemala. It may have had the tallest buildings of the ancient world. Although some scholars debate this claim, Tikal definitely had the tallest pyramids. The largest of these, the Temple of the Great Jaguar, soared 65 meters into the air. That's about the height of a 20-story building. From the top of such a structure, the Maya could see for miles across the jungle. But even though the Maya built cities that touched the sky, they didn't always get to enjoy the view. Sometimes clouds would cover the horizon or thick fog would roll in. Yet, despite the humid climate, the Maya managed to build some of the largest cities in the ancient world. Between 250 and 900 AD, the population of Tikal alone may have reached 100,000 people. And during its heyday, merchants from as far away as the Roman Empire would visit the city. But as impressive as the Maya cities were, they aren't the tallest buildings still standing today. And that got me wondering, why did the Maya stop building such impressive structures? Why do we only have low-lying walls instead of soaring temples? To understand what happened to the Maya, we have to go back in time a bit. During the Classic period, between 250 and 900 AD, the Maya were at the peak of their power. This was a golden age. City-states flourished and trade thrived. The Maya produced stunning works of art and made impressive scientific discoveries. For example, they kept detailed calendars and had an accurate estimate of Pi. They also had a writing system, and they used it to keep records of births, deaths, and important events. The Maya even invented the concept of zero. But then, suddenly, everything changed. The Maya civilization collapsed and the cities were abandoned. According to the archaeologists, this process happened over a few decades. People simply picked up and left. They dropped their tools, left their homes unfinished, and even abandoned half-grown crops in the fields. At first, scientists thought something terrible must have happened, like a devastating earthquake or a massive volcanic eruption. But when they searched for evidence of such a disaster, they found none. There wasn't even a serious drought, and this was puzzling because the Maya lived in a tropical climate. Surely they couldn't survive without water, but they must have done something to adapt to the environment, like building dams or canals. But there's no sign of hydraulic engineering. In fact, there's no evidence that the Maya ever farmed the land. Instead, they grew plants in carefully dug holes in the ground. This technique is called raised beds, or sometimes swidden. Agriculture. It's certainly simple, but it's not very efficient. If you want to grow enough food for a large population, you need to use irrigation. And the Maya weren't stupid. They knew how to irrigate their fields. They just chose not to. So it seems the Maya deliberately brought about their own downfall. But why? Some researchers believe there was too much warfare. As the Maya cities grew larger, they needed more resources. So they went to war with neighboring states. Eventually, all the city-states were drawn into these conflicts, and it became too dangerous to live in the Maya world. But there's no evidence of widespread warfare. Sure, archaeologists found battle wounds on some skeletons, and Maya art often depicts warfare, but warfare isn't necessarily total war. The Maya may have fought battles, but that wouldn't automatically lead to the collapse of their civilization. Perhaps the Maya abandoned their cities out of fear of invaders. After all, the classic Maya period ended around the time the Aztecs began migrating into the region. But the Maya likely saw the Aztecs coming. They had plenty of time to react. And besides, the Maya were excellent warriors themselves. They could easily defend their cities with their spears and bows and arrows. So maybe the reason for the collapse is hidden in plain sight. The answer may be right under our noses. Maya cities were absolutely enormous. Just consider Tikal. At its peak, it covered 4 square kilometers. But the vast majority of the city was covered by forest. In fact, the forest was growing right over the rooftops. When archaeologists began excavating the site, they couldn't find the main temple. They had to literally hack away the vegetation to find it. The jungle eventually reclaimed the entire city. But how did that happen? Well, the answer is right here. These guys, trees, play a crucial role in the story of the Maya. You see, the Maya lived in the tropical lowlands where it rains almost every day. That's why they built their cities in swampy areas. But those swamps were full of biting ants and deadly snakes. So the Maya decided to clear the land by cutting down the trees. Once the canopy was gone, they could farm on the surface. But the soil was poor and the crops didn't last long. So after a few years, the farmers had to abandon their fields and move to new lands. And since they lived in a tropical paradise, the jungle quickly grew back. Over time, the forest covered the entire city. But that's just a theory. There are other explanations for the decline of the Maya. Some scholars believe the population simply outgrew the food supply, or perhaps disease killed off too many people. Whatever happened, though, the Maya abandoned their magnificent cities and returned to the swamps. These days, they live among us. The Maya are still around. In fact, they make up the largest ethnic group in Guatemala. But even though the Maya are still around, hardly anyone remembers their magnificent cities. And that's what I find most remarkable about the Maya. Their creations are completely overgrown. You have to search hard to find them. Imagine living in a world with towering pyramids, but then the next time you look, they're gone, and all that's left is a jumble of rocks. That's exactly what happened to El Pilar. One day the city stood proudly in the jungle, but then a thick layer of dirt covered the rooftops. And today, only a handful of structures stick up above the surface. Archaeologists have spent years clearing away the dirt, but the work is slow and painstaking. There are countless artifacts buried under the ground, and each one must be carefully examined. Archaeologists don't just want to find stuff, they want to learn stuff. Each arrowhead tells us something about the Maya. Did they live in peace, or were they preparing for war? Each piece of pottery gives us a clue. Did they trade with distant lands, or were they skilled craftsmen? Each year, archaeologists uncover more and more artifacts, but they haven't found the reason for the collapse yet. Every year, they ask new questions about the Maya, and every year, the Maya have more secrets to share. Now click here to watch this video, or click here to watch this one instead, and remember to subscribe.